Mechanism mode helps us simulate and investigate moving mechanisms in our 3D model. For example, an opening door or a rotating wheel and so on. It's worth noting that before you go into mechanism mode, you should first set positioning constraints on your model so that the mechanism mode has something to then go back and rely on for its movement. I'll now click on mechanism mode, and in this case, click and drag on this door. As you can see, the door will simply open and close like this. At the moment, I'm not using collision detection, so I can drag this through other parts with no effect whatsoever. We could also add a positioning constraint that locks the angle of this so that can't happen, but I've purposely left that out. You can see here if we turn on collision detection, and in this case I'll leave most of it switched off, but I'll leave display collision highlight turned on. Now you can see I can drag this, and when I collide with the rest of the model, I'll get a display highlight showing where the collision is. As you can see there, it hits the base too when it goes past that point. There are various other options you can set if you'd like to. In this case, I'll turn that one off and show you the different dragging behavior options. We have relaxation, localized, rigid, and standard. What I'm going to do is actually change our model to something that will better represent the different behaviors. In this case, generally all behaviors will be the same for this model because it's such a simple movement. What I'll do is drag and drop out this robot, which is a more complex moving structure. You can see if we turn on mechanism mode here and set it to relaxation, the robot will move in a way you would likely expect it to, where all the arms and pieces can rotate and move freely about their respective axes. Now I'll cancel that and open it up again and show some of the other options. We have the IronCAD standard option, which is also called the minimum move option. So if we have this turned on, it will essentially just try to move the minimum amount of components and not propagate that through to the other components. So if I select on this arm, you can see I can rotate the arm, but nothing else in the model is moving. We also have the rigid mode, which is also called maximum move. And then we also have the localized mode, which is no propagation. Generally, the localized mode will allow a level of movement somewhere in between the standard and rigid mode. And relaxation will propagate the movement through all different nodes in the model, so it allows lots of free movement like you saw earlier. The reason we have these modes is so that you can get expected behavior without needing to set as many constraints on the model. Because if you have everything in relaxation mode, you'll often need to set many more constraints to get the model behaving in the way you would expect it to. Whereas with these other more rigid options, it allows an easier option for the user to try out different versions here to see if they can simulate the right functionality they're wanting to without having to set more constraints. For example, let's change over to localized here. And you can see with localized, I can now move the part I'm selecting onto, but also the main axis of the two parts behind it going back and forth like that. But I still can't rotate the robot in the same way down the bottom here like I can with the relaxation mode. Now if we use relaxation here, you can see when we click and drag on that part, it will now move all the different areas of that robot. That's how to use mechanism mode.